Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Episode with Rich. He had somebody express interest to him in becoming a show dealer. And it would be the first time, and talking about the challenges or the learning experience, all that would involve, whether that would be at Rich's show, which would be kinder and gentler, or a huge show, which would be throwing somebody into the deep end. Thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So here it is. Rich, welcome to the show. This is not even a hypothetical because I think it's happening, but you have one table left for your Adot show, and somebody says, hey, I've never had a table. I'd like to have a table. What do I need to do? You, being a smart guy and wanting to set this person up for success, you're not going to say, hey, just give me your money and you're on your own. You're going to want to help them be successful for the good of the show, for the good of the person, for the good of the hobby. I'm looking forward to your show. It is a show that you need to explain to people. It's not typical, but it could be a fabulous experience for somebody that's never had a table at a show. So let's bat that around.
The current Adot show as it is now, as opposed to when it first began, we are in a different building than we began. It was a 3-ring circus pre-pandemic. Now I called it a neighborhood show. It's a 20-table show. I try to hand select the dealers to be friendly to the people. I want to have a decent selection of items. I don't want to have necessarily the Pelican case, all showcase shows. I want to have cards that people touch. I talked about this show on Jeremy Lee's podcast, and there were a couple people listening who said, we love your show because it's a throwback show. So I told the person, really, the two key things are have fun and price your cards. If you have better cards, have some showcase to protect them. Other than that, you can make a decision what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what to bring, what not to bring, but I do suggest you just price your cards. To me, the pricing the cards is the most important part. You don't have to have every card priced. If you have a $1 box or a quarter box or a dime box, that is sufficient pricing because every card in that box or in that group is the same price.
I'll go a step further. That's not sufficient pricing. That's preferred pricing for some people. If you go through a box and every card is a different price, number one, that takes a really long time to do that. Number two, people are going to want to haggle. If there's 25-cent cards and $5 cards next to each other, they're going to say, why? They may even try to swap out the sleeves, the penny sleeves or something. That's why dollar box, I think, can be preferred, or quarter box or whatever. But there's an art to that, Rich. Does this guy have the wherewithal to be able to do that? And if he doesn't, how does he acquire that?
This is a horrible thing to say, but you learn by making mistakes. When you and I talked to Bob Brill, when we had Bob Brill on, he talked about how his first show, he had a killer show. And the second show, he did $12. And then he realized he was picked over at the first show. And so you have to learn from experience. You have to figure out what you want to get. You have to figure out that people knows more than you do. And you have to be satisfied with, if this is a $10 card and I want to get $7 for it, I'll price it at $8 and somebody will offer me $7. I knew from my customers eventually what percent I could charge them. But then again, I'd been doing this for a while. When you were a dealer, it was really simpler times when you were a show dealer. You had some ideas.
But at your show, the good point is it's not overwhelming. If he walked in and he paid for a table and he sets up his stuff, he could easily walk around the room and see what other people are selling things for and how it's done like that. Because it wouldn't be overwhelming because there's only 19 other tables. But the problem would be if he does put prices on his cards and the Bob Brill phenomenon, that all of a sudden everybody's swarming him. And I'll take this box. If people are too eager to pay his prices, then it might be these too low, or maybe he just nailed it. But when I put something on ComC and I get an offer on it within 15 seconds, I think, wait a minute, did I price this right? Why is somebody jumping on this? Now, maybe they had an alert that they're looking for anything new that for them.
I believe the alerts are now coming on ComC, so you may be seeing more of that going forward.
But anyway, so what I was going to recommend to your not hypothetical friend that's going to do that is to put your cards out in waves. Don't put everything on the table. Put some things out, see how it goes. Your first recommendation is be prepared to have fun. Don't you think there's personality types that some have more fun than others?
Well, absolutely. But
Can you figure that out? If this guy's very quiet and laconic and introverted, and he's going to sit there and read the newspaper, he's probably not going to do very well. But if he's gregarious, outgoing, engaging, he's probably having a great time, whether he sells a whole bunch of stuff or not.
and maybe it's fun for him to be laconic and just sit. But certainly, when I say have fun, that may not have been the exact words I should have used, and even enjoy yourself, but be happy that you're doing something you really wanted to do.
You mean you got to smile?
You don't have to smile, but it helps to smile. It helps to be friendly. It helps to talk, and you'll learn your talk to customers as you go along. I can't teach you how I talk to customers. I can't teach you how you talk to customers. We all have our own ways of talking to people.
Okay, if he says he's got 500 cards, what do you tell him? If he's got 50,000 cards, what do you tell him?
500 cards, I would tell him probably just price everything, put your best cards in the showcase and put the rest on the table and just go for it. If it's 50,000, I would tell him have a box or two ready. And then if and when that box sells, just put out another one because there's only X amount of room. One of the amazing things about the Adot show is I think we've had 5 sellouts in the last 4 shows. Like even on Monday, one of my friends who doesn't do very many shows, but he's there and, oh yeah, he wanted to sell out. This couple came in, asked him how they found out. Oh, we saw this on your Sports Collectors Digest listing. Okay, so if you're looking for shows on Sports Collectors Digest show calendar, you're pretty serious. Okay, and they found him and they worked the deal out. And I saw them start carrying, and I actually moved a couple more boxes to help facilitate them getting the stuff out of the room easier.
Is this part of your pitch to this potential dealer?
No, that was not part of my pitch.
Would that be appealing to him? Does he want to get into the business, or is he just trying to get rid of stuff?
I'm not sure. He was very satisfied with my answer. So whatever I told him worked for him.
It's a baby step compared to getting in Kyle's, slogging it out with 700 other dealers.
If I was going to get into Kyle's show, I would look into one of his pop-up shows and say, okay, that's where I want to start. He has a lot of people who don't normally do the Dallas Card Show at his pop-up shows. Instead of learning from the deep waters, learn from the shallow waters.
Okay, let me tell you something that I used to do that I think is bad form, and you can correct me because I'm self-reporting, is that when I had a dealer tables at shows, when I didn't have a customer in front of me, I was prepping another box to put out. I think I'm not the only one that does that. If it's not busy, I'm going to be getting another box ready to put out on top of the table, get it priced and know what I've got, just because I don't want to sit there twiddling my thumbs. If somebody comes up though, sometimes they think, oh, he's busy, he's not really interested. It doesn't present a posture of, hey, I want to sell my cards. It's, hey, I'm looking at my cards. Do you get that same vibe, or you think that's not a big deal?
If I'm looking at your cards, for example, when we were talking about Knicks earlier, I was looking at the cards and I asked for the cards that didn't have price. How much were they? Oh, every card on the tables are $1. Okay, that gave me a point of entree. And that's the thing. You look until you ask me. I look until I'm intrigued by something. Okay, tell me about these cards. Tell me what your price is.
No, I'm saying when I was there looking through these dollar boxes, the owner wasn't hovering over me. He wasn't answering my questions. He was sorting other cards, which I wanted him to do. And so he put a few more boxes out, which was terrific. I'm an advanced collector, but a different kind of customer might have been offended that he wasn't engaging me of, hey, how can I help you? Can I bring a box over to you? Are you looking for this? I have this over here. So he let me do my thing, and that's my style. But at your Adot show, when the person walks up to the table, this new dealer is going to want to say, what are you looking for? Maybe I've got some of that at home. Maybe I could bring it tomorrow, something like that. In the meantime, maybe, like I said, you're sorting cards to get it ready because you've got a bunch of cards.
I'm okay with somebody doing that. Everybody does something different. Do what works for you as the vendor. I'm okay if you sort cards, that's fine. But the minute somebody comes to the table, you probably should at least engage them, unless it's somebody you know. And if it's somebody you know that knows that you're going to look for a while and then say, okay, Rich is going to ask me when he needs to ask a question. I'll say, you continue doing until I'm ready to talk to you. You know that difference versus the person you've never met before.
Have you ever fired a dealer for rudeness?
I've never had to, thankfully.
Because you're picking them pretty wisely on the front end?
Yes. And then I tell people I hand select the dealers nowadays. When you have 20 tables, you can do that.
How many dealers has Kyle eliminated for malfeasance? For non-payment, I'm sure, but
For non-payment, yes. Jerica, his right-hand woman, does a really good job of keeping everybody straight. And they really try to get their money in advance for each show, just like the National does.
to your credit, many dealers or promoters might not be able to do this, but if you had this guy come up and say, hey, I want to get a table, I've never had a table, I've got some cards, I want to sell them. If they put their stuff out and you being the promoter and being responsible for the whole thing, could look it over and say, you're way too high, or maybe you're way too low. I don't think you're responsible for pricing everything, but you're so quick. I'm quick too. You just look at it and say, you know what, you're way too low on this section of the table. These are really tough, and you've got them as if they're commons or something like that. It's the kind of thing like we've talked about. You go through a dollar box, I'm going to pull out a $10 card. I'm not going to go to the dealer and say, oh, did you know this was in there? But if it was a $100 card, I'd say, hey, you made a mistake. And I know you've done that, but something like that, would you be helping this new dealer not get burned?
When I'm running the show, I don't get to look at a lot of stuff. I'll try to do a quick one over. And one of the funniest stories is one of my vendors who does all my shows, that was always done my show. He's loved the show. I looked at his stuff one day and I said, Bobby, you're not going to sell anything at the show today. Oh, yes, I will. At the end of the day, he hands me the money. He says, did you sell anything? He says, I sold nothing. I said, what did I tell you? He says, I should have listened to you. I said, yeah, I try to tell you. This audience is not the Dallas Card Show audience. This is a different audience. Don't get me wrong. I talk about the sellouts. We've had some people had amazing shows at my little show. And so there is some serious coin that walks into that show, but it's not designed to be the frenzy of a Dallas Card Show. It's more designed to be, hey, we're having a nice show. Yeah, okay, I've got money in my pocket. Let me give it to you. That's really more what I want to do, plus the friendliness.
Okay. We've talked about the business aspects of your show and some of these things. And I know you're a mall walker, and Willow Bend Mall, I think when it was going strong, some of those leases you paid per square foot, but then there was a royalty override if your sales were above a certain amount. They got
correct. Most malls were like that.
Okay. What if the hobby did that? That your table,
you would have dealers telling you they had the worst. You would have dealers telling you they had the worst shows they've ever had in their lives.
Yeah, but I want 2 tables next time.
Right.
Worst one. The problem, I think, is like you said, that you'd have to self-report, and there's usually no cash register or any way to do that. But it's almost like your Adot show could be a free table, but you could give us 5% of whatever you sold. But again, it's so hard to enforce.
That would be an interesting concept. And the 5% would have actually sometimes made us a lot more money.
I'm saying
from some of the money I've known that's
but it's found money. It takes away the downside. You don't have to pay anything, but I want 5%. And we've got 4 cameras in the 4 corners of the room. But how do you know if somebody does Venmo or Zelle or a credit card, cash, what is the amount? On the other hand, you could look at the table when it started and look at the table when it was over. But I just think it's a can of worms. But really, this guy, if you say, hey, can you have a free table? Just give me 5% of whatever you sell. Maybe he sells $500. That's $25. $1,000. That's $50.
That's an interesting concept.
I don't think it's ever going to happen until you get digital payment methods that are auditable fully.
And that's one reason I'm convinced that Fanatics, Tops, has instituted basically and making sure their store owner clientele have point of sale, POS technology.
It's like a blockchain, that there's a tracking of every transaction, and we're liable. This is a really horrible note to end on, Rich, but it's going to be Fanatics coin instead of Bitcoin. And they're going to get micro payments for all these things. And then they would know.
Fanatics coin. Why don't you go talk to Mr. Rubin about that? I think he'd love your idea.
You need another $1 billion.
Is